Hello beauties, how are you all doing? My name is Shaz and I love colorful makeup, although we're not going to do a lot of color today because I'm planning on doing a review of Fighter Palette from Fantasy Cosmetica. And as you can see, this palette is not super colorful, it's mostly neutrals. We are going to do 3 eye looks and swatches, and I'll just tell you my opinion about this palette. If that sounds good to you, don't forget to give this video a thumbs up. Also consider subscribing to my channel for more content like this. Let's now go into the video. Okay beauties, let's quickly talk about the outside packaging and the aesthetics of this palette. So as you can see, the outer packaging looks very similar to what we saw in earlier palettes from Fantasy Cosmetica, particularly the last two. I feel like it kind of looks like it is sort of a design in stained glass. At least that's kind of what it looks like to me. And I believe that was also the case for both Rogue and I think Sorcerer. I don't remember Bard's palette very much. I'm going to do a quick comparison at the end of this video, side-by-side comparison of this palette with all the other Fantasy Cosmetica palettes, just so you have that. And I'm going to tag it in the comments description below if that's what you want. You can just go directly to that. Also, you have Fighter at the bottom. It's super nice. And it came in one of these, which is also similar to every single other palette that they have released. And then on the back, it has their logo. It tells you that it's a pigment palette and some additional information about, you know, how many ounces there are in it, expiration dates and things like that. And the inside of the palette has a mirror, which is great because these palettes are pretty compact and small and they're amazing for traveling, which is something I love to do with these. Smaller the better. But the only issue is that this palette came broken. I have already made a video of how to press broken shadows back in, and I'll link that also in the description box below if you're curious about that. If you received this palette broken, maybe you can use that video to press them back in. It also had one of these things to protect the shades, and I always keep those because if something is shattered, that usually protects it at least in place so it doesn't get over everything. And as you can see, these are all neutral colors, not exactly my type of color, but what's amazing about Fantasy Cosmetica is that these pans are magnetic. You can get them out with one of those magnet tools or a relatively strong magnet. So you can mix and match the colors in this palette with colors in their other palettes for creating your own custom-made palette. Okay beauties, now that we took a look at the palette itself, let's also take a look at the swatches. As always, swatches are done on bare skin with no primer applied. I'm gonna prime my eyes with Eye Prime because, and I always shake this because it's always so oily, because I want to use something other than Painterly. I feel like I use Painterly a little too much. So just putting this on my lids. Sometimes I rub a little bit of the primer under my lower lash line, particularly when it's liquidy like this as opposed to Painterly. Anyway, let's jump in. We're gonna do this beauty. Let's use this. This is from Dragon Fruit collection of Cleona. This brush, it's number 1. I haven't decided what I'm doing, but let's do something a little more neutrally. So I'm gonna use this beautiful Cavalier, very nice gray. And I'm just sort of patting it here. I continue to be very impressed by the pigmentation of mattes and also shimmers of Fantasy Cosmetica. I have a review of pretty much every single palette they've done. So Druid, Sorcerer, Bard, and Rogue. All of them are tagged in the description box below. In fact, I'm probably going to turn them into a playlist at this point because this is a brand that I like a lot. I'm now going to pick a packing brush. This is from Luxie number 213. This is a packing brush. And I'm going to go into this color Might. I'm not a huge fan of using shimmers on brushes because I feel like brushes eat up the shimmer, even if you use sort of bristly, sort of harsher, more bristlier brushes than these fluffy brushes. I'm just going to use my finger. That beautiful aubergine color, I love it. And it has tiny, tiny, tiny glitter looking particles in it. Again, it's not crunchy glitter, it's just tiny specks of gold. I'm just gonna take this across the lid. Now I'm gonna use this, maybe a little more on it, and I'm gonna do my lower lash line. Okay, beauties, now what I like to do is to pick a tiny brush. This is also Cliona number 5. And I'm going to come into this color, Glory. This is a beautiful, very, very shimmery and sparkly color. And this beauty is going to go in my inner corner. I'm now going to use the brush with the gray color on it, and I'm just going to brush this out. Okay, beauties, my eye look is done. I put a little bit of Starling from ColourPop Ultra Blotted Lip on my lips. I put the old formulation, I have it from before, but I also have the new formulation that I bought from ColourPop. I did not realize I have the old formulation when I bought the new formulation. The new formulation looks a tiny bit more peachy. Let me show you. So this is the new formulation. It looks a little more peachy, right? Anyway, I wanted to do something kind of more nudey. Ideally, a more nude color than this would be best. Also, beauties, if I did not mention, my nails are from Cliona. These are the Slickadelic collection. I don't remember the name of this one. I'll put the name under the screen. Anyway, beauties, so far so good. The only complaint that I have is the fact that the palette got to me broken. Other than that, I love the shimmer. And also, beauties, this shimmer, this one, Glory, is not fully opaque. So you can probably put it on top of things for a different effect, or you have to build it up. You can still see your skin from under it. But I absolutely love this one, Might. Very nice for this kind of a smoky, raccoony type of a look. Yeah, and I'm enjoying this look. Now let me bring the camera closer and show you the eye look from close up. Okay, beauties, for this eye look, I'm going to use Icing from Glamlight. This is in Buttercream. I'm using different kinds of primers with each of these looks so that we can also test how this palette works on different primers. I'm going to pick a moderately fluffy brush. I'm going to try to not repeat colors. Let's aim for a warm toned look. So I'm going to go into this color. This is Velour. This is a beautiful peanut buttery type of color. I'm just putting it across the lid. I'm now picking a smaller headed brush. These are both from the Gems collection of BH Cosmetics, the one that they released. They released once a month Gem of the Month in 2021. These are both from that collection. They might have this brush collection available on their website. I'm gonna go into Warrior, this beautiful brown, and I'm gonna use this in the outer V area. I'm now gonna use the same dark color and the same brush, and I'm just gonna draw it against my lower lash line. I'm going to use the first brush and blend these two into each other. And then I use the same brush and diffuse this lower lash line color. I want this eye look to be a little more warm toned, as I mentioned, so I can use one of these two across my lid. I want to use this one. Frankly, I can even use both. Another thing I can do is I can actually just use this peanut butter color across and just leave it as a matte look, or do that and then do maybe this color in the inner corner or something like that. But this color is a little bit cool toned, or maybe I can do this color in the inner corner, similar to the first look. But I do want to do sort of a variety of looks. So let's go into this one. This is a beautiful color. It's a very nice coppery, and it looks like it has tiny pink speckles in it. It's interesting. Let me use this base booster from BH as glitter primer. I'm gonna put this over here and then use the beautiful color Victory, the copper color, over it. If this palette had a lighter, sort of a skin toned color, you could have used it in the inner corner to open up the eyes, but I would not recommend any other shimmer in the inner corner because it would take away from the amazingness of this shimmer that I already put on my lids. Other than that, I'm really liking this look. I find it so nice. It's sort of a super classy look. You can even wear it to the office, and the nice thing about neutral eye looks is that you can usually combine them with different types of lips. I would probably wear something warm toned with this eye look, but if you wanted to do, I don't know, red lip, you could still do that because it's neutral. For lips, let's go with Starling from ColourPop. This is, I think in the first look I used the older version. Let's use the newer version in this second look. Okay, beauties, I put that color on my lips. You can probably see some choppedness on the lips. Just ignore that because, as I've mentioned before, my lips are always chopped. And we're going through some of the hottest months of the year, so it's just not even nice. But I'm liking this look. I actually think the lip color really goes because this copper color has a little bit of pink in it, and I think the lip also has a little bit of coral in it, which is pink. So they go together pretty well. I'm liking that. And then if I were to just judge the palette overall based on the second application, everything was nice. The blendability was nice. Pigmentation is nice. Now, I have pretty high expectation for neutral colors, meaning it's not very difficult to get neutral colors right. So I'm not super impressed by the fact that they blended pretty well. It's like, okay, this is neutrals. We've been doing these for years. This is literally the core of what every brand makes. So I'm not super impressed, but it worked well. Now let me bring the camera closer and show you the eye look from close up. Let's jump into the third and the final look. I already primed my eyes with Juvia's Place Eye Prime in shade number 2. As I try to do with these eye looks, I try to use shades I haven't used before, but of course we're talking about a 9-pan palette that doesn't have too many shades. So I might repeat some shades, but still I'm going to try to use at least a few shades that I haven't used, like these two beauties. I'm going to use Singe Beauties number 4, and I'm going to go into this one. I've used it before, but you know, as I said, just 9 pans. And I'm just putting it on the inner half of my lid, more like inner 1/3. Now I'm going to use a Japanese brush with a relatively small head. It's stained with green, ignore that. I'm going to go into this color. This color we have not used before. It's a beautiful chocolate. And this beautiful color is going on the outer half. This palette does not have a lot of lighter shades, so it's a little bit difficult to make looks that are going to be more on the lighter side because, you know, even the lighter colors are relatively dark like this one. Okay, I'm now going to pick another Japanese brush. This is a fluffier brush than the other one. I am completely going to town, blending these edges into my skin or into the primer. Now I'm using the dark color, same exact thing that was left on the brush, and I'm doing my lower lash line with this. Okay, beautiful. Frankly, this is an eye look by itself. I don't even need to do anything else, but I do want to use that color, so I'm going to just go into it. This is a beautiful, I want to say silver with a hint of blue. I think you can see the blue in the screen. I also see sort of tiny, I want to say lavender glitterers or like particles, speckles, whatever, inside. And I'm putting this color at the center here. Now this is going to be a super cool toned look. I'm going to pick the fluffy brush and just brush this upper part. This is a Morphe brush M210. It's a flat brush, kind of nice for picking up cream. And I'm going to go into this color Fervor, and I'm going to put it under my lower lash line. Just going to add a little bit of warmth to the look. So as I mentioned, one issue that I have with this palette is that I wish it had at least one color that was very, very light. It could have been a matte, it could have been a shimmer. That is one of my complaints from, I want to say, every single Fantasy Cosmetica palette that I've reviewed. I definitely think Fantasy Cosmetica palettes can be used together for different types of looks because there is very little, if any, overlap between the colors in the different palettes. This is the outer packaging of the palettes from Fantasy Cosmetica. I think I kind of missed the mark when I said that Fighter looks like Rogue and Sorcerer. It actually doesn't. And this is inside of these palettes for comparison. Also, beauties, just in case you're wondering, these nails are Cleona, the Slickadelic collection. I think this is Warped, I think, is the name of the one that I'm wearing right now. Other than that, I'm liking this look. We have talked about the fact that cool toned looks look good on me. I recognize this kind of look might not look very good on someone who has very, very warm toned skin. But because I have a cool toned skin, these kinds of looks that are very cool toned look good on me. Let me bring the camera closer and show you this eye look from close up. Okay, beauties, I feel like I've said everything I wanted to say about this palette. So it was a little bit disappointing to receive the palette with 2 shades broken for a 9-pan palette. It's generally disappointing to receive a palette with any shade broken, regardless of the size, but definitely for a 9-pan. The other thing that I also already mentioned is I wish it had more lighter tones, at least one lighter tone than the colors that it has. But separate from that, overall, I was pretty happy. You know, I'm not a huge neutral person, and for a neutral palette, I think this is a good size, and I think it has reasonable amount of a variety. The experience was relatively similar to my experience with other palettes from Fantasy Cosmetica. However, my bar for a neutral palette is much higher than for colorful palettes because colorful pigments are generally more difficult to make and the technology is just not that old. We've been making neutral colors since forever. If they can perfect those colors, it impresses me way more than if they can get neutral colors right. Separate from that, also that this is just not my color story. I realistically don't see myself reach for this palette very frequently because it is neutrals. Okay, beauties, I hope you enjoyed this video. I would love to hear your thoughts on this palette if you've used it, if you have it. Maybe you've made eye looks with it and you have different opinions. I would love to hear from you in the comments below. Thank you so much for being here with me as always. If you're not subscribed to my channel, don't forget to subscribe. Also, you can press the bell to get notified every time I post new content. I love you all. Have an amazing day, and until next time, bye.